Let's learn how to create this amazing 3D text effect. Hi, today we will create a beautiful and responsive hero section you can reuse or take inspiration from to build your next project. Together we will discover and use RenderTexture, ReflectorMaterial, Postprocessing, and CameraControls. Before we dive into the tutorial, let's explore how tools like Visme Forms can complement our 3D web projects to craft engaging forms. As 3D web developers, we are often asked to create interactive experiences. Sometimes we need to collect data from our users, for example, to subscribe to a newsletter, to register for an event, or to get in touch with us. To do so, we can leverage forms to acquire website leads and submissions. But Visme Forms is unlike other forms because it allows you to create beautiful and memorable forms that we can embed in our 3D web projects. With recently released Form Builder, Visme Forms allows us to create forms in minutes with a simple and intuitive drag-and-drop system. We can choose from a wide range of templates and customize them to match our brand all the way down to the characters and their pose. A feature I love is the ability to use 3D characters to make forms more engaging that will integrate perfectly with our 3D web projects. And you know how much I love 3D avatars. With its unique approach, Visme Forms can help us create more engaging forms to double our conversion and submission rates, according to some of the testing Visme has done on their own website. Give it a try to get more leads, subscribers, and sales for your projects or clients. Head over to visme.co/formbuilder to get started for free. As often in my video tutorials, let's start by getting my R3F with starter pack, code, copy the HTTPS address. In a terminal, run git clone, paste the address, and enter the folder name you want to put it into. Text landing. Then open the folder it created, going File, Open folder. Once it's open, run yarn to install the dependencies, and yarn dev to start the development server. You can access the link here. Now you should see a cube in your browser and being able to rotate around. For the project we are going to create, we need a font to display the text on the left and the 3D model on the right. To find fonts, you can go to Google Fonts, choose the one you want. Me, I will be using Poppins. Click on it and download the family. Once you have downloaded it, in public, create a new folder, name it Fonts to keep your project organized, and drag and drop it into Fonts. Now we can go to our code and try to display the text. Go to Components, Experience. This is where we have the mesh. We will replace it with a text from dry. It requires the text you want to display, my little camping. To force the new line, I will add manually a \n here. And it also requires a material. Let's use a mesh basic material with a color of white. Let's add the font we just downloaded with the font prop, the path to it, so it's fonts/poppins-black.ttf. Now, if we reload our project, we can see we have my little camping displayed, but because we are displaying white over white, it's not very visible. Let's change the background to be black. Let's open app.jsx. Here, the background color, instead we will use 17-17-20. And to not have a jump when the app will load the 3D part, we can copy the color, go to the CSS, and define the body color to be also that color. Perfect. So now we have our text displayed, but the space between both lines is too big and the size isn't the best. So let's adjust its position, scale, and rotation. Let's start by the position. We want it to be a bit on the left. Position X -1.3, position Y -0.5, and position Z 1. To reduce the line height, we use line height 0.8 and text align center. Our default camera position is not ideal for when we will create the animation. Let's adjust it. Go to app.jsx. Because we want to go from far away to get closer to the scene, let's set it at 0, 0 to be in front of what we have, and start at 8, but we will animate it later. And we can increase a bit the field of view. Now it's better, we will fine-tune it later when adding the camping on the right. To have free 3D assets, I go to Polypizza, search for camping, download the camping asset collection, click on download, download GLB, you can see you need to give the attribution. So copy it and we will paste it in our code and in our project. Once downloaded, in public, create a new folder, name it models, and drag and drop it to your models folder. You can see it here. Now to create a component from the model file, we go to the terminal, run npx gltf jsx, the path to the models, so it's public models camping. Then we use -o for the output file, so it will be in source, components, camping.jsx. We'll be using -k to keep the name of the meshes and -k to keep the groups. Then -r public to set the root folder, which for us is public. Once it's run, you have your camping.jsx file generated. You can run yarn dev, hide the terminal, and the only modification I usually do is to rename model into camping. Now you can see we have the different groups, and we have one named tent. It's because I modified a bit the GLB file, so you can download it from my final code repository, or you can do some modification yourself using Blender. Now we have our model ready. We can go to experience, and next to the text, add our camping component. So far, this is what we have. We need to add some lights so our camping is visible. To make it very easy, let's add the environment component with the preset sunset. And we can now see our camping, but let's adjust its position and scale, and same for the text, so they appear correctly inside our screen. I will reduce the scale of the camping to 0.6. I will wrap it inside a group to adjust its position and rotation. The rotation Y, I'll be using deg to rad of -25. Deg to rad is converting the value in degree into radian, and to put it on the right, position X is equal to 3. Now we have the camping on the right. Let's adjust the text here. Let's rotate it in the opposite way. So rotation Y is equal to deg to rad of 30. It's better, but we want to align them next to each other. To do this, because I changed the Y position, I will do ncore Y is equal to bottom. So it will place our text base at the bottom. And now they appear to be on the same line. Perfect. Before adding nice effects, we will want to animate our camera from far away to getting closer. To do this, we will be using CameraControls library. Its documentation, because it's a separate library, is on the CameraControls repository, but there is a wrapper in Dry library which makes it available out of the box when using React Fiber Dry library. So to install it, it's pretty simple. We just replace Orbit Controls with CameraControls. And to be able to execute methods over it, we add a reference over it, name it controls, and let's create our reference here. Controls is equal to useRef. Let's animate our camera programmatically in a use effect. So when our component will be mounted, we will call an intro function that will be responsible of the animation intro. Let's create it. Let's make it async. And let's start with a very simple one. Controls.current.dolly of -20. What it will do is it will push back the camera of -22. And because we don't add an extra parameter, it won't be animated. So when we open it, our camera will be far away. If we reload, now we have our camera very far away. And to animate it to go back to its original position, we can do dolly of 22. So it balances what it did. And we set true, so it's animated. Now let's reload, and we have the animation, but it's a bit too fast. To make it slower, we can do controls.current.smoothTime is equal to 1.6. Of course, adjust to the value you like. Let's try it again. And now it's slowly getting our camera towards the whole scene. To make it look better, let's add a fog. So when it's far away, we won't be able to see the text. To add the fog, we go to app.jsx. We'll use the default one. Add fog, attach fog, and adjust the near far value to you like it. 10 and 30. Now, if we reload, we have that fade-in effect, which is just based on the zoom, because if it's far away, it is in the fog, so it's smoothly fading. Let's make it look way better by adding some effects. Let's start by adding a floor that will reflect what is on top of it. To do this, we will use a component from Dry library. We will be using the mesh ReflectorMaterial. There are nice examples we can take advantage of. If we open the example, we can see what it looks like and what values they use to have that effect. Let's add it inside our experience. After the two groups, let's create a plane, so a mesh with a plane geometry. We'll make it 100 by 100 and a mesh reflector material from dry with the following parameters. You can adjust to what you like and gives you the best results. And then we need to adjust the position of our mesh. Let's put it at minus 0.48 and rotate it to look like a floor with rotation x is equal to minus math.pi divided by 2. Now we have that nice floor reflecting our text and a bit the camping here. The second effect we want to reproduce is the fact that inside the text we have an animated camera rendering our camping scene. But for this one, we won't use another camera rendering this camping here, but we will render the camping another time within that text. So it's the same model, but it's another instance of it. To do this, we will use the RenderTexture from Dry library to have a texture rendering another scene inside our text. Let's find our text here, mesh basic material, and we will attach it as the texture of this material. So we don't need to remove it or change it. Inside, we create a render texture from dry and we attach it as the map. So automatically, it will attach it as the map of this material, and the map is the texture of a material. And inside our render texture, we will put our content we want to display inside. We start by defining a white background to this scene, so it remains white. Then some lighting, we'll be using the same, but it needs its proper lighting to work. And we add the camping component, but with a bigger scale, and we rotate it to look good. This is what we have. We can see we have the camping with the white background inside the text, but we want it to be animated inside. To do this, we can simply wrap the camping within the float component from dry, and we will adjust its floating intensity with a value of 4 and a rotation intensity to make very animated with a value of 5. And now automatically inside our text, it looks like a video displayed inside it. But in fact, we have our camping moving, which is displayed just within that text. What makes the real scene looks even better is the fact that we are using some bloom effect. To add it, we need to install the React Postprocessing library. You can find the documentation here. Let's copy the import. Let's run yarn add at React 3 Postprocessing. Once it's done, we can run yarn dev. We need inside our app, inside the canvas, to add the effects composer, but be sure it's the one from React 3 Postprocessing. Then we add the bloom effect. We need to use mipmap blur and an intensity of 1.2. You can try different value to have different effects. But so far nothing is happening because we need to tell our color to go beyond a certain threshold to trigger the bloom effect. Let's go to our experience and we will create a bloom color. Const bloom color is equal to new color, so from 3, and it will be white, so FFF. But it will have a R is equal to 1, a G is equal to 1 for green, and blue is equal to 1. And until those values, it won't trigger bloom. What we need to do is to have values like 1.3, 1.3, 1.3, so it will start blooming. What we can do is to do bloom color dot multiply scala by 1.5. So it will increase the R, G, and B accordingly to this factor here. Now we copy bloom color here. And for our mesh basic material, the color, we will assign our variable here. But again, you won't see the difference right now because by default, the material is tone mapped, which means that all values over 1 will be clamped at 1. So we need to say tone mapped is equal to false. And now we have the bloom effect working correctly, which looks way better than without. Now we have another issue. It looks nice on my desktop and that resolution. But what happens if we resize it? We'll have the text truncated and we can see only a small portion of the camping. Let's adjust it to make it responsive. Because we are using CameraControls to make our animation, we can use another method to create the animation to be sure everything we want will be always visible. Let me explain it to you. We will create a mesh. We want always to be sure it's entirely displayed. So we'll need to create a box. We could also use a sphere, but for our use case, a box is easier. Let's put it here, create a mesh. We add a box geometry and a mesh basic material with an orange color. You can use any color you want. We will hide it later. Set transparent and opacity to 0.5. Currently, it's just a box displayed here. We will need a reference to it. Ref is equal to mesh fit camera home, and let's create that reference. Const mesh fit camera home is equal to useRef, and let's create a method named fit camera. It will be an async function. What we will do is controls.current.fit2box. It needs the mesh to apply it to, so it's mesh fit camera home.current, and we want it to be animated, so we use true. And now, instead of using a dolly of 22 to go back to the position, we will call fit camera. That will position our camera correctly. Now if we reload, we have the animation into the cube here. So we need to adjust the size of this box to be sure we can see everything we want. Let's scroll down to it. It's this mesh here. We can adjust the size of the box geometry. I'll be using 7.5, 2, and 2. And we can also adjust the position of the mesh itself. I will use position z is equal to 1.5. So this is that part we want always to be able to see. So if I zoom out, we can see we'll be sure that this part is always visible when we animate it. Let's try to reload. It zoom in until the limit of this mesh. If we do it again on a bigger resolution, let's reload. Now we are sure our scene is completely visible, whatever resolution we are using. But to make it perfect, let's make it responsive. So when we resize it, apply the animation, we can add an event listener. So use effect window.add event listener. On resize, we will call fit camera, and we will return remove event listener, and we remove the event listener on the resize. Now it's animating correctly to the right position. If we enlarge, it will animate the camera, so all our box is visible. It looks nice. We can now remove the visibility of this box. We simply add visible is equal to false. Perfect. Now it's animating correctly. Sometimes you might have a jump effect because the resources are loading. To avoid it, you can wrap your experience within a suspense component. So it will wait until everything is loaded inside before triggering the experience. To make it perfect, you will need to go to experience and to tell your experience to preload the font. So use font.preload and the path to the font. Because inside the camping, we are using, for example, the models, but because we used the command, it automatically generated the preload of the model. What it does is it will tell your browser it needs to load that resource. So it will load it. And while it's loading, suspense will render nothing or a fallback component, but we didn't add one. And once everything is loaded, it will render the component and trigger the animation. So it will be way smoother. Let's try it. We reload and we have a smooth animation. And if nothing is rendered because we have the same background color, it will look nice, but you could add a spinner or a loader. Now you can go further. I will show you how I added UI and HTML over the camping here. You know I'm a Tailwind lover, so let's follow the instruction to install it to style our component. We copy that part here, yarn add -d and the resources, then npx tailwind css init-p, we paste it, enter, and in the tailwind config.js, we need to replace the content with this. Go to tailwind config.js and replace content. It's to tell to which Tailwind file it's applied to. So JS, TS, JSX, etc. We save, we run our development server, we hide the terminal, and now in our CSS file, we can add those lines. We go to index.css. On the top, we add those lines. Now we have Tailwind set up on our project. Let's create our UI. Components, new file, ui.jsx. Export const UI is equal to a new component. I prepared a component for the home. It just contains a button, and when we press it, it will set the current page to display the store. And by default, we want to display the home. But we need to add that global state to say on which page we are. To have easily a global store, I'm using Jotai library, so yarn add Jotai. We will create an atom, export const current page atom is equal to use atom, and by default, it will be intro. Then inside our UI component, we'll have a current page and set current page, which will be equal to use atom of current page atom. So it's like a use state, but it will be global to that big atom here. So we can use it inside our 3D parts too. Our UI will only be displayed when we are on the home section. And by default, we are displaying the intro. So after a while, after the animation is playing, we will switch to the home. To do this, we go to our experience, find our intro animation, and add a set timeout. What we will do is set current page to be home, and we will do it after 1 second and 200 milliseconds. We need to import the set current page. So const current page and set current page are equal to use atom of current page atom. So it's the one exported from the UI component. And we also need inside our app here, next to the canvas, to render our UI component. I made a mistake in the UI. Here it's not use atom, but it's atom directly to create the atom with the default value. Now we play the intro animation and the enter button appear. When we click and enter, it disappears and we have to animate our camera to go in front the camping here. To create that animation, we'll go to experience. And like we did with the mesh fit camera home, we will create a mesh fit camera store to animate our camera to see only the camping. Let's find our camping component, not the one inside the text, but the real one. And inside the group, we will create a new mesh with a reference to mesh fit camera store. We'll be using a box geometry with 2, 1, and 2, and a mesh basic material, this time in red, transparent, and opacity to 0.5. You can see it's that mesh here. I think it should be enough to display what we want to show to the user. Let's animate it when we change the current page. Let's go to the fit camera method. If current page is the store, we will animate to go to the camera store mesh. Otherwise, we go to the other one. The use effect responsible to fit the camera will need to add the current page to retrigger it to call fit camera with the right value here. And we can also call fit camera when the current page change. Let's try it. We have our animation, and when we press enter, we are slowly going into the camping. But we can adjust the speed of the transition for the store. So smooth time, we will keep it to 1.6 for the home, but for the store, we can use 0.8 to be faster. We have the nice animation and quickly goes to the camping. We can also hide the fit camera store mesh. Visible is equal to false. And we also want to hide the text that is displayed on the left. We'll make it fade out when we change our camera position. To do this, we need a reference on our mesh basic material for the text. Let's name it text material. We'll create the reference with all the other text material is equal to use ref. And in a use frame, we will lerp the value of the text. We will need the delta to do it. And text material.current.opacity be equal to lerp from 3 math utils. The current opacity, if current page is home or intro, we want to see it. So it will be 1. If not, it will be 0. And for the speed of the lerp, we'll be using delta multiplied by 1.5. By default, we can see the text, and when we press enter, it smoothly fades out. Now you can add everything you want. I added some HTML component to display on top of the different items. Let's go to the camping component. I created something named overlay item. It's a reusable component to use HTML and some CSS inside. It's using our atom with current page atom to hide the components if we are not currently displaying the store. Then it's just default HTML CSS using Tailwind. Let's add it for all our items. You can search for tent, but because the tent is a mesh and I want to use the same position, we can create a group on top of it, copy the position, and now I can add my HTML element within that group, so they will share the same position as a reference. Now we can add our overlay item we just created, define the rotation, position, adding a title and description we want to display in HTML, the price, and the background color. I also added a class name prop to add some transition that vary between the different overlay items, so they appear one by one. Let's repeat the process for the other items. We have backpack. It's already in a group, so it will make our life easier. Add the overlay item, customize its offset position, its title, its color, and transition. Then we have the lantern. It's also a group by default, so we just have to add it. And we have the sleeping bag. So by default, it's not displayed. When we press enter, it's displayed correctly on top of the other items. But you can see you have some ghost items displayed here. Because we are using the same camping component, it's also displayed in the one in the text here. So we need to not render them for the other instance. To do this, it's pretty simple. On top of our camping component, we'll add a new prop. So props to get all the existing ones. And we'll add an HTML one. And overlay item, we will wrap them between HTML and overlay item. So we only render it if we have HTML set to true. Let's repeat for each overlay item. So this one, the lantern one, the sleeping bag. Perfect. Now go to experience. Our camping, the one inside the text, we don't set it with HTML, but for the other one, we need to add HTML. So now we can try to enter. We have the nice animation displaying our HTML elements, but we don't have the issue anymore with the other items. Of course, it's an example to display HTML on top of 3D items here, but you can just keep the default text effect to create any pages you like. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If it's the case, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel be more visible to other creative developers. Again, a huge thanks to Visme for sponsoring this video. Follow the link in the description to try it for free. Don't forget to subscribe to not miss my upcoming tutorials. Next week should be about a Christmas-related project. In the meantime, you can watch my other videos like this one, available here.